Welcome to Season 3 of Honeymoon Coffee Company podcast. Something really cool happened at the end of last season, at the beginning of this year, 2025, is that our company was featured on the How I Built This podcast advice line with Guy Raz. If you're not familiar with that show, it is an entrepreneurial founders show, and it's been around for close to a decade now. We listen to it all the time. It provides us with inspiration and commiseration, and we sent them a recording of our idea for a new product that we wanted to launch, and they messaged back and got it all set up, and our episode aired in January of 2025. And before we get to this episode where Jessica and I discuss what that developing of that product has been like and what the experience of the podcast was like, we wanted to share a short clip of the podcast for you here. So it's about 10 minutes long, and then we'll get to Jessica and I debriefing on the other side. So without further ado, the How I Built This podcast advice line with Guy Raz, Jack Conti, and yours truly.
All right, Jack, let's bring on some callers because we've got people who are waiting online to ask for advice, and hopefully we can be helpful. Let's bring in our first caller. Hello, welcome to the advice line. You are on with Jack Conti from Patreon. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from, and a little bit about your business.
Hey, Guy. Hey, Jack. My name is Zach Parsons, and I am calling you from Evansville, Indiana, where in 2016, my now wife and I started the Honeymoon Coffee Company. And in the last, 8 years or so, we've expanded that to 4 retail coffee shop locations. We added an Airbnb above one of those locations. We acquired one of our vendors, and now we're doing coffee roasting, as well as starting a podcast last year.
Wow. Amazing. Okay, well, welcome to the show. Zach, you seem familiar. Do you follow me on a social media? I know I've seen your name somewhere.
Yes. We have interacted on Twitter.
Yes.
And then we actually met together in San Francisco at TED Women in 2016.
Wow. Amazing.
So first-time caller, long-time listener / follower.
Well, okay, congrats on the business. Thanks for calling in. So, okay, Honeymoon Coffee Company. First, tell us, I want to know a little bit more about it before we get to your question. So
Sure.
You're in Evansville, Indiana. You've got brick and mortar stores, right?
Yes, all in the Evansville area. So we are very much a local coffee shop.
It's great that you've got 4 locations because now you've got an economy of scale. Tell me a little bit about how the business is doing. I'm assuming virtually all your business comes from those locations, those stores.
Yes. So the 4 revenue streams of the coffee shops, we also do make some revenue from that Airbnb, and then we're able to kind of offer a competitive rate of wholesale coffee beans to ourselves with the roasting company that we also acquired, which is named the Evansville Coffee Company.
I love it. So you got your own roastery. You do Airbnbs in the same building as where the coffee shops are located?
Yeah. We've got a location that is right on the Ohio River, and it's this sort of very romantic, Airbnb is trying to provide unique experiences. Would you like to stay in a romantic location above a coffee shop that's called Honeymoon? We've had a lot of, folks spend their wedding night there or try and rekindle that sort of honeymoon spirit by staying at the Airbnb.
It's awesome. And what is the ambition here? Actually, I guess I should ask you, what is the question you brought for us? Because I'm imagining you've got a challenge that you're trying to deal with.
Yeah. Well, as we've sort of realized what makes us maybe different or unique in our community is part of it is just being local. If we were to branch out into a different community, we would no longer be the local coffee shop or a local coffee shop. And so our growth ambitions and some things we've learned from acquiring the roastery are that people buy coffee beans all over the country. So we now have this sort of new capacity to be able to ship beans to folks. And could we sort of blend what Evansville Coffee Company does and shipping beans all over the country with the honeymoon spirit and create a product that supports people as they get married and begin their marriage journey together over coffee?
All right, let's sort of break this down a bit. You're trying to launch a coffee subscription thing nationally, but that's connected to the idea of couples getting together?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So it could be maybe two different products. One could be a gift, a wedding gift. Say, hey, you're getting together and we want to give you a coffee related gift. But we also really are passionate about this idea of a 1 year program that kind of spans that honeymoon period, which creates both different coffees to taste every month, as well as a relationship ritual experience that they would collect together in a passport over that year.
Interesting. I mean, Jack, this is like a Patreon, but like right out of the internet. He's got all these things going.
It's amazing. I had a few more questions for you, Zach. Can you tell us a little bit about the podcast? That feels like it's a totally separate thing. How did the podcast come about?
I think the podcast was my wife's way of sort of throwing me a little bit of a bone. I mean, like truly, like she is the spirit behind this coffee. This was her dream, and I'd always kind of been in this more community involvement. And when COVID hit, I actually worked with our local NPR affiliate to do a COVID-related podcast to just kind of document how our community was going through that. And a local friend recommended that maybe we document some of our trials and tribulations with being married to each other and running and expanding and growing business. And it's been about 2 seasons.
And that's what you guys talk about on the podcast?
Yeah. We talk about our relationship, how we balance the different needs of our personal lives. We have 3 kids each from different marriages, almost a perfect Brady bunch with the 3 boys
Wow.
and
Yeah.
2 girls and a boy on my side, as well as the challenges and potential things that we could tackle as a business together.
That's really cool. And so the idea is sell a coffee subscription that lasts a year, that is sort of the honeymoon period. That's where the year comes from. And then what else comes with that? I'm not sure I quite understand the product. So I get that there's the coffee, but what else? Do you get some kind of book or something where you write down your experiences in your first year? What is the rest of the product?
So it's a little bit of a mix between a passport and one of those like Panini sticker books. Like, do you guys remember those from when you were kids where you would get a book and fill them with like, sort of the stickers? So it's kind of like that, to where they would get a book at the beginning of this experience, and it would give them the coffee tasting wheel to encourage them how to taste and name the notes of the coffees they're experiencing. And then every month they would receive a new coffee and a ritual that would be designed to deepen their relationship and have a conversation and an experience around a different theme. And the instructions for that would be a sticker. And then those stickers would be put in the book. So at the end of the year, they would have an entire book filled with their reflections on the coffee that they had tasted over the year, as well as the conversations and activities they had in the relationship ritual as well.
Okay, awesome. So a couple thoughts right off the bat. First, I just want to acknowledge, like, when I was starting Patreon, the number of people who told me that's a bad idea, it's not going to work, was like, everyone. I don't think a single person said that's a good idea. You should go do that. So I have a soft spot for pursuing things that sound out of left field because I did that. And
Sure.
honestly, I spent my life doing that. I've done that 1,000 times. Most of them haven't worked, but occasionally something does work. And if it's out of left field, you're the only person doing it. So there's not a lot of competition. So maybe first thing I would just offer is like, the most important part, I think, to just remember, like, what you're talking about is finding product market fit. And the right strategy, I found the right strategy for finding product market fit is actually no strategy at all. It's speed of iteration. Like your intuition is actually going to be right in some areas and wrong in some areas. And what matters most is getting through the mistakes so that you iterate your way to product market fit as quickly as possible. So my main piece of advice is not about the product or the experience or anything like that. It's about testing this idea with people who would buy it, get to that point as quickly as possible so that you understand how many people are there out there who want this product. And the faster you get to your first sale, the faster you're going to learn where your intuition is right and where your intuition is wrong. And so that's very different. Like, finding product market fit is very different than like being in a scaling phase, which is where you are with the rest of your retail shops, right? Goals for a scaling phase is more around, operations and rigor and making sure the staff is managed well and like making sure you're financially managing the business as well. That's like a whole different set of activities and strategies than finding product market fit, which is mostly just about speed of iteration and getting on the other side of the mistakes as quickly as you can.
I think that's I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm gonna sort of double down on what Jack's saying, but from a slightly different angle, which is because I think your question, you're trying to figure out like, how do you do this, right? How do you launch this? And look, the reality is, and you know this, Zac, there's a proliferation of coffee brands all over the U.S., small and large, right? And we've had a lot of coffee brands on the Advice line, and it's hard. It's hard to sort of stand out. There are brands out there, coffee brands, from places as small as Evansville, or roughly the same size, like Fayetteville, Arkansas. Onyx Coffee is for people who know coffee, major brand in
gold standard.
Gold standard, in part because I think they've won a bunch of barista competitions, and then they opened up a training center. But I don't think too many coffee brands are trying to focus on couples and weddings, and so there really is an opportunity here to tap into the wedding gift world, right? So one way to go about it is to really find, coverage from bridal magazines and bridal websites. But I also think of like Zola and some of these other wedding sites that are really focused on getting it all together and seeing if there's a world where you could maybe partner with some of these places, because it's not that you're selling coffee, it's that you're getting into the bridal business, which is a massive multi-billion-dollar industry. And so it might be worth exploring some of the players in that, big and small, in that world, who might want to partner with you.
Well, I think you've walked through a similar sort of thought process that we went through. Like, if we think about trying to compete with Onyx, that's pretty daunting, or Blue Bottle or Starbucks, name the coffee brand. But if we try and stand out within a different industry, but still try and demonstrate excellence within coffee, that's where we're hoping to kind of stand out.
That makes a ton of sense, Zac. I think I really like what Guy said. There's generally in like commoditized markets where the product is relatively undifferentiated, like, steel or corn or, those sorts of like commodities. The biggest factor is brand. And nowadays what that means is story. Why should people buy your coffee? It sounds like it's coming back to this like, relationship with your wife and this podcast that you have about your relationship, helping other couples. Like there's something in that narrative there that I think could be like the hook and make this coffee feel different. Really nailing that story and starting with that why and getting it to feel differentiated, I think is a really important part of why people would buy this coffee as opposed to some other coffee.
100% agree. 100%
I really
agree.
appreciate that feedback, and that's very encouraging.
Zac Parsons, Honeymoon Coffee Company. Good luck, man. Thank you so much for calling. Thank you for being a fan for all these years.
Thank you both for what you do. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Zac.
Thanks so much, Zac. I just kept thinking, just like in my head, I was like, what if the bride is like a tea drinker? And they're like, oh, somebody sent us this couple's coffee kit. He drinks coffee.
Then it's the start of the unfortunately not the honeymoon, maybe the end of the honeymoon. It's a cool idea. I honestly love those left field things. Like I would never think to pair like a relationship honeymoon sticker booklet with the coffee thing. And who knows if that specific idea is going to work or not. But what I liked about it is it's not just like, I got a bag of coffee and I want to sell it. Right. There's an angle to it. And like that precise angle might be wrong, but that there is an angle is what's important for something like coffee.
This approach might not be the one that works, but it could be the one that the thing that really catalyzes what does work.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, another caller, another question, and another round of advice. I'm Guy Raz, and we're answering your business questions right here on the Advice Line on How I Built This Lab.
All right.
The third time is
Here
the
we go.
charm. We've never had to start over.
Take 3 for season 3. That's what it is. It's our third
Yeah.
season.
The dog barking.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
we were in such a good flow. Easily the high point of our podcast banter, and the dog is going absolutely bananas because another
squirrel.
dog.
No, it was a squirrel.
No, there was a couple that was walking out there. You didn't
Oh.
see him?
I thought he was barking at a squirrel.
No.
Gotcha.
Let's bicker.
Get it right.
Let's
Yeah.
banter.
Let's get it right.
Let's go to the tape. We can listen back to it if you need to. All right. So Guy Raz, Jack Conte, we're having a conversation with them. I'm having a conversation with them. I know you didn't get to hear the conversation live because I was super nervous. You said it was like the most nervous you'd ever seen me.
Uh-huh.
But then when you listened back to the edited version, you thought, what?
I thought you nailed it. I thought you were really smooth. And you said you had to, they had to edit things out and they made it sound great. But yeah, I thought your answers were really clear. I thought your vision was clear. And I thought they also gave you really good advice.
Yeah. No, they did give good advice. Was it kind of interesting how they thought it was just sort of a wild and wacky, out of left field idea?
I was surprised at that. To me, and I don't know if it's because of our story being like love and coffee and this business that we're running together, that to me the idea doesn't seem so far out of left field because I'm like, we're just leaning further into the honeymoon name.
Yeah, and coffee has been a part of our lives, both professionally and personally. Like we do have a coffee ritual together that we do every day.
Yeah.
That sort of like leaned into how do we, share this with others. And so I guess that's a good sign that if it's something that feels kind of organic for us, but that nobody else would have thought of it, according to Jack, that's a good sign.
Yeah, and the people that we have sent it to and have bought it thus far have really enjoyed it and had like stories of them like being moved to tears, and it's definitely something that's resonating.
Yeah. And Jack's comment was, everyone he told the idea of Patreon about told him that it was a bad idea. Mm-hmm. And that actually hasn't been our experience so far, other than on that podcast.
They told you it was a bad idea.
But almost everyone else we've talked to about, they say, oh, yeah, that totally makes sense. That's a great idea. But, with any entrepreneurial idea, talk is cheap. A lot of people will tell you, oh, that's a great idea. You should totally do that.
And then they never come.
Yeah.
They never come once
Money
to buy
talks.
anything.
People will vote with their feet, vote with their wallets.
Yeah.
And they can tell you all day long they think something is a good idea, but if it doesn't actually affect their behavior, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So what advice did he give you that really like stuck out to you and like made the most sense to you?
The one that probably made the most sense to me was actually the one that he included at the end of the episode, where it was all about kind of advice to all of the founders, or maybe advice he gives to other founders, which is what gets you from point A to point B, and being sort of collaborative and open-minded about your vision and letting other people kind of help to form that is not the same thing that gets you from point B to point C, and that when you have a clear vision, you sometimes have to apply that fairly, I was going to say ruthlessly. That's that's not the right
like
word.
you.
No, but directly, like to where you say, you know what, I'm asking for advice and I'm actually not wanting it. I need to move this forward based on what my intuition and my gut says.
Yeah.
And that is the other part of the advice that he gave me was like, get it to market quickly because your intuition and your gut is going to be wrong. And
That's so funny because remember when we opened Honeymoon and I always wanted to like, we need to ask an expert or someone that is more experienced than we are. And then over time, I did somewhat learn that I got really bad advice sometimes that way because those people didn't necessarily know like our unique situation.
Yeah, the trouble with expertise is it's not usually contextualized.
Yeah.
And there's a skill to listening to somebody's advice and somebody's wisdom and being able to discern or distill or basically kind of operate. What's the word I'm looking for? Operate. Dissect. Disseminate is like when you're sharing information, but dissect is a little more as well. Hey, but you got the DIS part right.
I tried.
Jessica loves to finish my.
Yes, I love to finish your sentences wrong.
Just to save time.
And as quick as possible.
Well, that advice I think was really good. Is get it out in front of people, let people experience it. You know, we did sort of have to rush it to market more quickly than we had expected to or ready to, because they released the podcast fairly early on after we had recorded it. And so we had a sort of not ready for prime time version of it that we had to put on our website. We did not have a logo finalized. We had to pivot a little bit on what I described in the podcast about it being this 1-year program and stickers and all of that to kind of a tighter version of it that's just sort of this monthly ritual that someone could purchase and participate in, you know,
as much as they want to.
And that we will then move to eventually a version that someone could purchase as a wedding gift that maybe lasts a whole year or two or whatever that happens to be. But a few months have passed and we've got it in the hands of a few more people, and we've gotten really good, positive and constructive feedback on it.
Yeah, I've been surprised at some of the feedback that we got and how moved people were with some of the prompts that they were going through with their partner. And yeah, it was just really encouraging to hear that.
I feel like it's slightly an extension of what we try and do with the shops of like what makes a coffee shop great isn't necessarily its menu or its some sort of magic program that they can sort of make everyone experience it. There's something of a neutrality about it to where it needs to be warm enough or have enough of the right background music or background buzz or attractive decorations, you know, to where people then feel that they can bring their best selves in that space, you know, fill the space, make that connection, bring their energy and their spirit to it. And so trying to create these prompts to where it actually is going to jumpstart a conversation with a couple to where they're going to get to some areas that maybe they haven't in a while or ever.
Yeah. It's been kind of fun to develop the prompts together.
Yeah. Well, because then we'll go off on these wild tangents and be like, all right, well, we're trying to develop a prompt for somebody, but then we have to go ahead and answer it.
I know. And there was one that I was like, yes, that's it. And I was like,
I
don't think this is a good prompt. I could answer it with yes or no.
And then we've had some that have opened up conversations with us that we've never had before, which is the whole point of it.
Yeah.
Well, and the other part that's been kind of fun to develop is the name and the logo. I say fun to develop, but it's been a wrestling match. There's a lot of words that we have to try and include in this to be descriptive enough,
yes,
but not too wordy or confusing or things that maybe are already taken on Instagram or websites or other, you know, copywritten, you know, trademarked, you know, intellectual property.
Yeah, the name is always challenging. I feel like when you landed on the one, it made sense, and then you realize that ONE is actually inside honey.
The word honey,
yeah. So like trying to build on that and make meaning in the logo from that realization gave it like another layer of complexity.
You are speaking very kindly to the absolute frustration that I have brought to our team by kind of insisting that we at least explore this as part of the brand, part of the logo, because we had landed on the one and then found out that it was a trademarked sort of name for something that's kind of in the wedding industry. But then after talking to an intellectual property attorney, realizing that it being a coffee product is probably not actually going to infringe on anything. But it also just didn't tell people enough about what it was.
Right. We've definitely learned some lessons in the name area, just given our past background and having to change our name. So I think for me, it was just wanting to make sure that we weren't infringing upon anyone else's trademark.
Yeah.
And making sure that we were good. And then I just wanted it to look classy and something that is timeless and evoked love and, you know, my feminine side and energy that I bring to things. So
What about my feminine side?
I think some of yours is more masculine.
I appreciate that.
So trying to find the balance between us.
And one of the things that we've learned is, you know, we kind of went back to some of the things that we do know. We were talking about expertise a little bit ago, and some people do ask us for advice or to tell our story of, you know, what advice would we give to somebody else, you know, wanting to start an entrepreneurial endeavor. And we look back at our experiences and then give that advice.
Here's all the ways that we failed, and this is what we did well. And
but then when it came time for us to do something new, and we went back to the way that we had done it before. So we went back to our graphic designer and said, all right, here's the vision, close enough version of the vision that we have right now. And here's the name. And I remember those were two different meetings. Mm-hmm. Once we sort of land on the name, that allowed her to get, you know, a little bit closer. And then once I fixated on this element of the word one being in the word honey, that really sort of created this limitation to the collaborative design process that was a new experience for us. And we ended up aborting the collaboration just last week.
Yeah, and deciding to try to take it in-house and go a different way. And I think, you know, there's obviously some lessons that were learned there as far as we maybe jumped ahead a step when we, you know, didn't fully have the vision to have. It's kind of like what we're doing with the house right now. We need a new roof. Fine. I go to pick out roof shingles today, which Zac then says, our siding is rotting, so we need to get it replaced. And it's probably going to be easier to get it replaced at the same time or before the roof. So now here we are backing into, like, if I would have just chosen the roof color without knowing what color siding I was going to have, we could end up with like a disaster of something that didn't quite match.
Sure. Redoing the roof again when you're redoing the siding at some point in the future.
Yeah. So it was like the holistic approach of making sure that we have the whole picture. And I think with this product, we just weren't far enough along in our holistic journey of what it looks like.
Yeah. Because I think what I described in the podcast had more to do with documenting the experience in a journal or a passport. And it was very much what is now sort of almost like version 2 or level 2 of the product, which would be this sort of more expensive full year gift. Mm-hmm. And now it's sort of been more the main kernel of it is the monthly experience.
Well, I think
and so
we
that
have to
does
nail
you don't
the
need a book.
monthly. I think we have to nail the monthly before we can add the annual.
And then other elements of it that I wasn't even aware of at the time was the fact that we use our single origin coffees to create blends. Like that is just the natural part of what coffee roasters do. Mm-hmm. And so you have a marriage which is taking two single people and blending them together. And so by providing people with that experience of here's a single origin coffee, here's another single origin coffee, taste it, take the notes, taste this one, check the notes, now blend them, give your notes about what you think about those while having a different relationship, prompt around each of those experiences. That wasn't fleshed out at all when we talked to them.
Yeah, no, and we kind of were able to get to that point, and it was something that made a lot of sense because people don't often even know the difference between like a single origin coffee and a blend when you go into a shop. So that was also like a neat idea that kind of worked with the product.
Yeah. But I think what we are looking at today, and again, going back to the advice that was given from Jack, was we're not in a scaling stage. Like we it doesn't do us a lot of good to maybe hire a PR firm or blast out a whole bunch of ads online somewhere or contact an influencer because the name has changed, the logo has changed, the experience, has changed in different ways, and just recognizing that we are at that sort of phase in its growth, and that something like the podcast could be a vehicle to capture some of that story that he had recommended that we do, which differentiates us.
I'm excited to see where it will go.
Yeah.
And still have that vision of it being on Oprah.
Well, we're not
just a small goal.
Now, do you know where Oprah films?
Is it Chicago?
It is Chicago.
Okay. Or is she still in Chicago? Are you sure?
Oh, I have no idea. Actually, she doesn't even have a show anymore.
Yeah, now it's a magazine.
But where
I want to be in the magazine.
You want to be in Oprah magazine?
Well, the product, because she does like her favorite. Yes.
Oprah's favorite things. Is that what it's called? Okay.
She does she has a whole media empire. Yeah.
Just not a TV show anymore.
I don't think so, but I could be wrong.
But looking ahead, by the time we record our next conversation, we will have gone to Coffee Fest in New York City,
where you will be a speaker.
Yeah, that was a cool opportunity as well. So, getting to speak at Coffee Fest on a panel about business growth, and just you turn around, you blink your eyes, and it's been 10 years that we've been exploring and developing this company, and those are the kinds of people that maybe someone would want to listen to, who's starting out or in an earlier stage. So I guess it's kind of full circle. We get to talk to Guy Raz and Jack Conte, about
We get to mentor some other people.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah, hopefully. Well, that's kind of what I want to talk about, tonight on the porch, was reflections on the podcast, and any other podcast goals that you have. I feel like this is almost like part of your bucket list of like someday we want to be on.
You just asked me if I have podcast goals.
Podcast goals?
No, I don't ever think about the podcast until you make me do it.
No, not goals for our podcast.
Oh, I was like,
you got to be, or we got to be on the How I Built This podcast. I guess you just sort of shared it with the Oprah thing a little bit.
Yeah.
So being on Oprah's favorite things.
I just think it would be so cool to have this particular product, the one, on her favorite things.
Wow.
Because it's a great gift.
Okay.
And she does like the whole like gift section.
This isn't a bad idea, babe. Maybe we should
find a PR company.
Well, we need to iterate a little bit more, but
yeah,
we'll get there. Okay.
Cheers.
All right. Love you.
Love you.
That's it for this episode of the Honeymoon Coffee Co. podcast. For all things honeymoon, including the new one subscription box for couples, visit honeymooncoffeeco.com. You can also find us on Facebook or Instagram. And of course, for more episodes of this podcast, search for Honeymoon Coffee wherever you get your podcasts. Cheers.